I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
Jen forced me to ask myself, who am I, and being my own person for the first time in my life. That was the best thing she could have done for me. That was the biggest gift that she's probably ever given me.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for joining. We have launched a crowdfunding campaign on patreon.com, and we're getting ready to release some exclusive content there for contributors. So if you like what we're doing here at Together, please take a moment and look at the campaign page. You can find that at www.patreon.com/together. Again, that's patreon.com, patreon.com/together. And as always, thank you for listening. Your support is invaluable. Now on to the show. This week's guests, Jen and Harmony, were so much fun to interview that I brought them back for a second round. Today's episode is a story of how Jen and Harmony first met and fell in love, and why they broke up, and how it changed them forever to do that. Now, to find out what happened after the breakup, of course, you're going to have to listen to the episode. Part 2, coming this Thursday, takes a decidedly more philosophical turn, but I'll leave that introduction for its own time. So with that, let's go to part 1 of Harmony and Jen. So how did you meet, and then what happened?
So, we first met because we both played college sports. So we went to the same school. And when Harmony was a freshman and I was a sophomore, we met doing, we had like a softball team. I was on the basketball team, she was on the softball team, and we had a joint event. And that was the first time we went bowling together, the two teams. We went bowling, and we were in the same lane, and that's how we ended up meeting the first time. And at that time, I'd kind of had the lesbian part of me figured out at that point. But she had a boyfriend and had never, considered that or anything. And so over time, we became really, really close friends really, really fast. And, we'd text each other all the time. And she knew that I was gay and probably interested in her. And she didn't really let on much other than just, we can hang out, we can go study together, we can do all these things.
Yeah, we became study buddies. And so turning a person that lounges by the pool all the time into a studier in the library. She had never been to the library before we met.
It was the only time I could see her, is if I went to the library.
Yeah.
My GPA increased so much over those years.
And that's usually opposite. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So you were really into her, and Harmony, had you at this point even considered the possibility?
Not at all. Like, I knew that I just wanted to be around her all the time, and it was just so intense. Like, I'd want to study with her. I wanted to go to the dining hall, like everything.
Wow.
So weird.
We'd have moments at parties after a couple pops where, we'd end up walking back to our dorms together, and seemed like something could happen, and then nothing would happen.
Right.
And that happened throughout the year countless times. It was kind of torturous on my end.
It's the perfect setup for a sitcom. You could keep that going for 3 seasons, and the audience would just be in stitches.
Oh, completely. It was total torture. And but towards the end of the year, we knew we were going to go away for summer break, so we wouldn't see each other for a few months. And I pulled the most lesbian move of all time, which was the softball team made it to the NCAA tournament. And I said, no matter what, and I should preface this with, I had a bunch of friends, very, very close friends who were on the softball team too. So it wasn't as weird as it seems, but I said, wherever they got sent to play in the NCAA tournament, I would go and support them and be a fan. Well, it turns out that they got a bid in the tournament and were sent to Iowa.
Our fans were a mom, a dad, and Jen.
Yeah. There's a great photo of me. I've got like a sign, Go Athenas, and everything. I'm decked out, and it's just me in the stands, literally just me. But I went, and it was really fun. And as it turned out, probably one of my closest friends on the team, was rooming with Harmony then. So by the time that they lost and they were going to fly back to California the next morning, and so everyone was kind of unwinding and knew they could stay up late because they didn't need to prepare for a game the next day or anything. We ended up hanging out in their room, and we were all watching TV. There were like 4 of us in there. We ended up talking about, what girls do we think are cute on campus, trying to kind of get at Harmony and see if she would, budge a little bit.
So Harmony, you're sitting in the room listening to this?
Yeah, so then I started I started getting the hint that, okay, so Jen's interested in me potentially. I have these strong feelings. I have no idea what's going on. And so I'm in this room and they're all like trying to get, and I'm smart. Like I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get me to answer this question. So, who's the hottest girl on campus? I'm like, I have no idea. And inside I'm like having the biggest anxiety attack. And I go to the bathroom and I'm like, guys, I'm going to go to the bathroom because I know what they're up to. So I'm going to be up to something too. Then I go in the bathroom, close the door, put my ear on the door because I know they're about to like, I hear them like, oh man, I think we're going too far. Like, we almost got her, but
Yeah. Oh my God. That was, in hindsight, we had no idea if she was listening, obviously.
Well, but I want to go back to the anxiety that you were feeling for a moment here. What was it? I mean, I can guess, but what was it stemming from?
Knowing, like, finally admitting to myself that I had feelings for Jen in that moment, and not like having to admit that to myself, and I was not about to admit it to anyone else at the moment. So it was intense.
So
I'd never had anxiety like that before ever.
And was it as if this was the first time you had ever even had light shown on your feelings for Jen? Like suddenly they were present and you'd never noticed them before?
No, it was like admitting to myself they were actual feelings beyond an intense friendship.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So you're not ready to share with anybody else, much less Jen.
Right. And they are trying to pry this out of me
Yeah.
right now, and
It was too aggressive in hindsight.
Yeah.
so bad. Not really, because it
Well,
ended
Well,
up.
it worked.
Well, it did work. It
Yeah.
did work. So she comes back into the room, and at this point, it's just dead silent. So awkward. Just completely silent. The TV's on, and it's some stupid show. I don't even know what it was. And we're all just kind of sitting around on the beds like, okay, well, maybe we should go to bed soon. But I look over, and our friend Katie and Harmony are seemingly passing back and forth a phone across to each other. Like one of them would type on it and then pass it over to the other person. They're both laying on the bed and then would type on it. And I'm on the other bed with another friend. And I kind of see this going on. I'm like, what's, very curious, obviously. But no idea what's happening.
Yeah. And behind the scene, I was texting Katie saying, I'm having an anxiety breakdown right now, and I just need to say that I have feelings for Jen and I need this to stop or I'm going to break. And so finally Katie helps me, and she said, okay, I'll get them all out of the room and we'll decompress tonight and tomorrow. And so she kicked them out, and it was nice.
So to speed things up a bit, so fast forward to the next day, we've all arrived back in California, and I was on a flight behind the team. So Katie, lucky for me, came back to the airport after they'd already gone back to campus, picked me up, and we were driving back to campus. And by this time, everyone else, all the other students on campus had left for summer break. So it was just the softball team was on campus. They allowed them to stay for one more night and then pack up their stuff the next day and go home for the summer. So the plan that night was the softball team would all get together. We ended up playing kickball and just drinking a few beers. And then, everyone was going to say goodnight, kind of call it an early night. Everyone had to pack up the next day and head out. So knowing that we'd all get together one final time, I had that in the back of my mind, but also, the last interaction I'd had with her was this horribly awkward, we'd pressed too far. She's not feeling it. I haven't gotten any feelings of that I should continue pursuing this. And I get in the car with Katie, and right off the bat, she goes, Jen, I think you've got a shot. I just really think you've got a shot. And Katie's someone who she never overshares. Anything that's said to her is very much in confidentiality. So, I knew she wouldn't say that unless she really meant it, but also she wasn't going to say why. She didn't really explain why. So I was trying to get it out of her. And I was like, what, did she say something? I knew they'd sat next to each other on the plane. But
you at least knew it was for real.
Well, yeah, I thought so. But then I had asked her, well, what did she say? And she said, she'd say things like, she can see that you're a really good friend.
And you're like, that's not enough.
Literally, how is that helpful? That is not helpful in any way. I think you're reading this all wrong. So it was something like that. But we ended up coming up with this plan. We're like, there's only one way to find out if this is for real. And
it was a make or break too, because it was either this night or we go on vacation.
3 months. Yeah.
You guys had plans.
So this is where
deep.
it gets
Keep going.
This is where things
Harmony's
get.
just
This is where things
Well,
get super
you don't
interesting.
know. I might have a plan too. Which
True.
She did. So we make this plan in the car, and I won't even tell you because it literally ended up playing out perfectly. So I'll just fast forward to that night, right?
Okay.
So, and we called it Operation Condor. Like 3 people were in on it, and we all were like, Operation Condor.
Bringing the extinct back to life? Is that what we're referencing here?
It involved swooping someone who might potentially get in the way of things. So
Okay, Condor.
the end of the night comes around. We've all played kickball, had a couple of beers, and everyone's unwinding, hugging each other, saying their goodbyes, have a great summer, all that stuff. And at this point, Katie walks. It couldn't have happened more perfectly. Katie walks over to Harmony. She's like, "Hey, Harm, you want to come watch Ellen in my room?" I told you the lesbian stereotypes were coming out.
and I was like, sure.
Harmony's like, "Okay."
So good.
So I'm like, "Okay, well, sweet, that's happening." Well, the other roadblock was Harmony lived right next door to her best friend on the team, Amanda. And we're like, well, Amanda's going to be like, why aren't you coming back to the dorm? So we had our other friend, Michelle, go over to Amanda right at this exact moment. It's happening in front of my eyes. She walks over and she goes, "Amanda, we haven't chatted. Let's take a walk." And they just start walking off in the opposite direction of the dorm that we're going to go to. Worked out so perfectly. So we all 3 of us, actually there were 4 of us, ended up going back to Katie's dorm and turned on a show, and right away the other girl took the hint and left. So there were 3 of us, and I think we got through like an hour and everyone's just really stiff and awkward.
Yep, the 3 of us were on a futon. It was me, Katie in the middle, right?
I think so.
Katie in the middle, and then Jen, and I was clutching my knees like just
white
a
knuckles.
stiff board for the entire hour of that comedy show.
Because
laughs.
you know what's up, and the anxiety from last night is
I
still
knew that
present.
they were trying something, and my, giving it away now, my goal was to kiss her by the end of the night somehow, because I knew in my mind, like, I'm not going to spend 3 months wondering, I'm going to like figure it out now or never.
Yeah.
And no one else knew this, obviously. So then we were watching the show, and Katie goes, or I go into the bathroom again, and I'm not actually going to the bathroom. I put my ear on the door because it worked last time.
Again.
Oh, yeah. And so I hear
Devil.
Katie and Jen being like, "Oh, what should we do?" And Katie just leaves the room and just
Smart
strands Jen.
woman.
So when
She
I
literally
get back,
just bolts.
That's the way to go with this.
yeah,
Cut to the
so
chase.
yeah, then it's just Jen and I with the blank TV, nothing's on it. We were just staring at it, just face forward on the futon, like probably still like 2 feet apart. And it was just I blacked out by that time. I don't remember actually what we talked about.
Not alcohol related, for the record.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no.
I had like a beer maybe.
Oh, everybody. Okay, let's freeze this moment
Oh.
because this is like the essence of that first like adolescent physical interaction where you want it so bad and you're so terrified at the same time, and you've got so much emotion and hormone coursing. Oh my gosh.
My muscles are really tense just thinking back
about it,
to
right?
be honest.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
But then in my experience, when you do kiss, it's electric.
So the funny thing is, fast forward this story, one of my friends got broken up with and is crying her eyes out and looking for me. So I'm like, I have to go. We
were sitting there and just blank stares, kind of. Well, actually, we'd begun chatting by that point, kind of making small talk and things. And I think I'd started opening up a little bit about my experience of coming out and things in hopes of
Fomenting
softening.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Making
I
her feel
get-
more comfortable. And
So I get a frantic call from a friend saying, "Harmony, where are you? I need you right now." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I need to leave."
Jeez,
so I
the
get up
drama.
and I'm like, "Well, I have to
Can't make
kiss
this
her
stuff up.
somehow before I leave. Like, what's going on?" So I like get up, I like go to the door, then I like see Jen sitting on the futon still, and I'm like, oh shit. And I went and gave her a hug.
Yeah.
Like a hug, like crouched down, gave her a hug. And then and then I was like, it was a really hard hug, and then I just went from my forehead to her forehead, just like really intensely.
It was like a headbutt. It was like a headbutt.
Yeah,
it hurt a little.
Yeah, like
intimate
it was intense.
headbutt.
So awkward.
And I was just like, I don't know what to do. And so I just like went for it, and it was like the most like awkward, like hard, like 4 second
Straight up like press up on the lips.
press up, and then I
as
just
hard as possible.
bolted out the door, and she's like, wait, and then we like actually have like a good like 2-second kiss or whatever, and then I just bolt out the door.
Mm-hmm.
But you broke the ice.
But it happened.
It happened.
It happened.
The ice was broken. It was now a declarative moment.
Exactly. That was the
then-
start of it all.
And then 5.5 years later, here we are.
A week later, we were official after that. That's
Really?
how quickly it happened.
So, all right, now that's a fantastic story, by the way.
Operation Condor.
Operation Condor. So,
Yes.
so what's amazing to me about that story is that it's such a classic adolescent love story. The way you two came together, and there was so much drama around it, and all the structure, and all the friends helping, right?
Oh, yeah.
That could have been anywhere from junior high all the way up to the first couple years of college. Okay, now fast forward nearly 6 years later, and the two of you were fully, completely women. But yet you had that experience, and now you have this relationship, which is in a completely different stage.
Oh yeah.
And I want to ask about the relationship as it is now, starting with a hint you gave me before we walked in here. But one last question about Operation Condor, or that 6 year period. Didn't you break up during there somewhere?
Yeah. So when Jen graduated, I still needed to go another year of college. And so you can tell us.
Yeah, so I'd moved up to San Francisco. Harmony was still down in Claremont, and this is almost a whole different session.
Yeah.
We're going to, but the gist of it is when I moved into the city, I just had this overwhelming feeling of I've been in a relationship almost my entire college career. It was the first serious relationship I've ever been in. Especially with a woman, and I need to take this time to explore. And so we did end up breaking up for about 7 months in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think now, looking back, it's one of the better decisions that we made
Absolutely.
as a couple in the way that we handled it.
Yeah.
Led
I've
us
never
back to
been
where we
more
are.
mad in my entire life, but now looking back at it, like that was the best thing she could have done for me. That was the biggest gift that she's probably ever given me.
Because it gave you an opportunity to kind of grow a little bit before coming back together, kind of thing.
It's a little interesting story for me personally, because all my life I was very, very dependent, single, or only child, single mom, lived with her, best friends, very, very sheltered, very dependent, didn't really make my own decisions. And it was unfortunate that when she found out about our relationship, her own way, it was kind of, I didn't tell her, she found it on my phone.
Yeah.
That she kicked me out and dropped me to my dad's doorstep.
Oh, Mom.
So it was hard because I clung on to Jen. Then I went straight from being dependent on my mom to being very dependent on Jen, and that is for the long-term relationship. That is just very, very. It's unhealthy.
Oh yeah, that's a death knell right there.
Yeah.
Deal
So Jen forced me to like ask myself, who am I, and being my own person for the first time in my life. So that was the biggest gift, and she did it in a way where she really broke off the ties by being very hurtful, but doing it intentionally, so that I didn't try to,
It was so tough.
Man,
it
that
was
is
terrible. It was terrible.
courageous.
But the best thing ever, because 6 months later, when she finally called me again, we said I told her not to, or we agreed that we wouldn't contact each other until at least I graduated. So she contacted me a month before I graduated. And when I saw her her calling me. It was I know exactly. April Fool's. No, sorry, St. Patrick's Day.
It was, yeah.
And I saw her calling me, and I felt so incredibly empowered because I looked at it and I wasn't even tempted to answer the call. And I just felt so okay with myself that it changed from like Jen is my life to Jen adds value to my life. She adds color to it. She is not the energy creator of my life. So that energy or that perception and that shift has made our second time we've gone in this relationship, the second time around, so strong.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well said.
Well, to be able to make that breakup work for you from both ends, to be broken up with and have it become empowering,
mm-hmm.
and then to do the breakup in a clean way that left an opening later. So Jen, did you have concerns when you came back to try to start up again that maybe you weren't going to be accepted?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the things that we discussed, so when we first broke up, it was like really, really just sad and ugly, and we didn't talk for a long time. And then we had a point, 2 or 3 months.
December. We broke up in September, and the end of December, she came and visited me.
So 3 months into that, I came and visited her down at Claremont, and that's when we really had a chance to talk about it. And, we'd done a little bit of healing, but could really talk about why this happened and why, I don't even think there's a lot that we hadn't figured out. And I think just having the conversation really helped things. And one of the things that we decided coming out of that weekend was that we didn't know whether we were going to end up together or not. But if we ever did, it would be not because we missed each other. It would be because we were both so comfortable with ourselves as individuals, and we recognized that it could be even better with that other person in our lives. And I think having that thought really drove me, because it made me feel like anytime that I was just missing her, I was not okay. It was not okay to reach out at that point.
That's a really subtle distinction. So it sounds like you're essentially saying that there's something about the missing of one another that is grounded in or is based on an incompleteness in yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're dependent on that person. It runs back to that idea as well. And when you're dependent on them,
Well, I think it's inevitable to miss someone when you break up with them. You miss even if it's just a warm body in your bed at night, right? And someone that knows you, and no matter how healthy the relationship is or was, I think it's inevitable. So we can all relate to friends who have been in relationships and have broken up with their significant other and ended up getting back together with them. And you can understand the distinction from that point of, is it because they just can't be without each other because they're so dependent on one another, and you think as soon as they get back together, this is so unhealthy, I can't believe they got back together? Or is it, oh my gosh, I'm so happy they got back together because now they've really got their stuff together and this makes sense? And I think
but you were so young. How did you how did you even notice that this was an important distinction?
Jen has always been a very, very mature for her age. She made this decision for us. I was the one that was, when she visited us me in December, I was like, Jen, we need to get back together. Please. And she made that decision. And that's when she she knew that I would never fully become or try to find the person who I am by myself. If she made it kind of maybe we'll talk again in the future. She said, no, this is the mindset that we're not getting back together, and was very hurtful about it. But she did that knowing that I am best when I'm angry.
Now,
she knew that only if she made me angry would I truly abide by that and break it off.
So when you say hurtful, do you mean direct and cold and clear, or do you mean she inserted barbs in some way?
There was just things that can't be you'd say that you just can't get back from that, just some comments that were made, and it was just very hurtful. And we realized that when we got back together, she admitted like those things that I said, like those weren't true, but I knew that I needed to say that to let you go and for you to let me go. You needed to let me go.
That's like a movie script, Jen. Normal people don't have the courage to do that.
It's crazy. I had no idea the way that, I have no idea. I can go back to that room in December and it was the most intense thing ever. I have no idea how she didn't say like, yes, let's be together again.
Yeah.
She's so strong. It's crazy.
And Jen, from your perspective, was it really just about this specific intention that Harmony's discussing, that for the two of you to grow, or was there something else there too?
I mean, to be honest, at the time, it was very self-serving. It was really self-serving. And I at the time, I just couldn't, I truly did not have the same feels for her that I had when we were in the same place. And
you mean in the same physical place?
In the same physical place, yeah. And, when we were in the same physical place, we had the most amazing relationship. And at that time when I'd moved, I was definitely going through something that, and I can't even really describe it now, and it kind of gets me a little choked up to even think about it, because it's exactly what you don't want when you're in a relationship, is to feel disconnected from the other person.
Yeah.
And to feel like you can't do it. Like I can't tell you why, I just can't do it. And we did know each other so well, and when we were in the same place, we had the best, seriously, like hardly ever fight. Freaky good. Just love spending time with each other, each other's biggest supporters, and that's still how we are now. But at that time, I just felt like I couldn't be that for her. And it was
because you were feeling disconnected, and that disconnection came from your physical distance.
I don't know. I think it was just, I think it was a culmination of a lot of things, the physical distance, but also being at a different kind of point in our lives, and knowing Harmony, she'd already secured a job in San Francisco, so she was going to be up there the next year. So I knew I had basically 9 months where she wasn't going to be there.
And
she was taking a huge risk knowing that I'd be back.
It was, I didn't know. I truly didn't know if we'd end up back together, or if I'd want to get back together, or if she'd want to get back together. So it was, I didn't even see it as a risk. I truly just saw it as something that I needed to do.
You couldn't do otherwise.
I physically could not do otherwise. Or emotionally. And so, by the time, fast forward to that March when I did reach out, it had been after a couple months of being able to mull it over and starting to feel like, okay, no, I think, those feelings started to come back. And I didn't want to do anything that was like we were talking about earlier. I didn't want to reach out to her because I missed her, or I missed being in a relationship, or something like that. So I took my time, and I wanted to make sure she also had her time to heal, and knowing we didn't need to rush things because she would be up in San Francisco after graduation. But by the time I reached out to her, I was in a place where I was so comfortable with myself and knew I wasn't dependent on the relationship that I was prepared. If it didn't work out, I was going to be okay.
And Harmony, had you gotten to the same kind of confidence in yourself, not depend on the relationship space?
Yeah, I definitely got there where I was so confident in my own skin, and it was such a good feeling.
Well, it's palpable now. With both of you. And I would say, you guys, you have a very peaceful, calm confidence, the two of you, and you both share it. So I guess it worked out. I'm interested now, Harmony, hearing Jen tell the story and hearing her say that she thinks of her acts as having been self-serving. Does that change the way that you interpret it? Because your interpretation is very positive towards Jen, that she was doing it for you and for the relationship.
Yeah, I definitely, I kind of in that way where I when I find something that's negative, I see the positive in it. And that is something that Jen and I have discussed a lot, just like, I called her the most selfish person in the entire world. Selfish when, she said no still in December. And I truly meant that I would never be with someone so selfish, because I knew it was very selfish. But seeing like now that is actually, and I don't know if, at 19-year-old or 20-year-old 21-year-old Jen, if she knew why that huge gift that she gave me, but I deep down, like, I do believe that it was out of love for me and herself of what she did, because if she is trying to be someone that she's not in a relationship, that's not sustainable at all, and she literally and physically could not do it. So I guess I would call that selfishness just complete raw honesty.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Right. Which brings me to the question of commitment. Mm-hmm. What is your commitment now?
In a lot of ways, just committed in pushing each other to grow as individuals.
Okay.
Committed to our relationship and committing to treating each other really well, so that we are always growing with each other, and not necessarily in the same ways, just growing as individuals that completely support each other.
But I guess what I'm specifically asking is are you guys married? You're not married,
No.
Right? Are you engaged?
Mm-mm.
And are you monogamous?
Mm-hmm.
And is there a time component to your monogamy?
It's interesting because Jen and I have our relationship has always been pretty intense, where, I want to be married, and that's like the ultimate symbol for me of someone's commitment to me for life.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Jen has a different perspective, and it's taken me years to persuade her why marriage is, I don't know, so valued.
Yeah.
Not just to me, but in general.
I still don't think I have my mind made up on marriage and what marriage is. So my whole thing is, people, as we age, people grow, right? And I think the successful relationships we see that end up lasting decades and whole entire lives are the ones where people grow together. And I think, and that's something to be so valued. It's so special. My grandparents are like that. They've been married for 55 years, and they're so in love and are just this beautiful. They've literally been dating since like 5th grade or something, and I've never dated anyone else, but they're just adorable together. And a lot of what I've learned about love, I've learned from them. So I see that that's possible. Right. I'm not a total skeptic of marriage and commitment and long-term commitment, but I do think that oftentimes people who grow in different directions, and then it becomes more complicated. What reasons do you stay in a relationship? I think there are oftentimes points, and I'm not speaking specific to our relationship at all right now. I'm just speaking generally. I think there are points where it's healthier for both people to not be in the relationship, even if at one point it didn't make sense for them to be in the relationship, and that they could be happier with other people or having time for themselves or various other things. So I don't know. That's something that I'm still really figuring out.
The thing I think that we do that's different is we are constantly checking in with ourselves and us as a relationship by making sure that, so Jen was taught this by her grandparents, and it's this little check-in of, are we still on the right path in this relationship? Are we still meant to be together?
The idea behind it is when you're in a relationship and you feel like you're the lucky one, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this other person loves me. I mean, this is crazy. Like, I need to show them how much I love them all the time so that they continue to love me, and that show them that I appreciate them and that I respect them, because I just want this to continue. I mean, I'm just so honored to have this person's love.
The lottery winner phenomenon.
Right. But when the other person also feels that way is when the magic happens, I think.
Right.
So it takes both, and something that our friends shared.
They say that they say it in the way of if both people are constantly fighting for 60% of the relationship, you know that it's on the right path.
In other words, you can see when their relationships where it's kind of skewed. Like there's someone who's putting in 90% of their energy to the relationship and someone who's just being lazy and not doing anything and putting in 10% because they're like, oh, I could find someone better or something like that.
Yeah.
But wanting to put in that 60% of like, I want to have 60% of the relationship because I care more, but then the other person's also fighting for that 60%.
But also recognizing when there's an inequality, when, just like a really tough week and I'm definitely 30%, Jen 70%, and me saying at the end of the day, I know that we're uneven right now. We're going to do something fun on me on Saturday, So it's like fighting for a bump in your percentage.
One of the tools you see in the literature on relationship success over and over is, since you're human, you're going to keep tally. But if you're going to keep tally, don't keep tally in the short term. Think of it in the long term because there are going to be those 70%, 30% months for sure.
Yeah.
So now, hold on. So Harmony, it sounds like you're clear marriage, the two of us, for sure. You'd do it right away. Am I making too much out of it?
It's funny because I trust Jen so much that I know when it makes sense that will be what we do. She is a little shit sometimes, and just
I'm rational. She's more the emotional.
Whenever she sets her mind to something, it is done, and done just like that. And a perfect example is last year where we kind of talked about moving in together. And, I'll probably be another 2.5 years. I'm happy in my place. I was going through a fellowship application and interviews and stuff. And if I were to get it, we would be moving to England for 2 years. And so it was like, either, we're going to move and we'll move in together. If you don't get it, then whatever, we'll wait 2 years to move in together in San Francisco. The day after I get back from the interviews and I didn't get the fellowship, she's like, so I was thinking, let's move in together. Like that, we're going to move in together now. And I was like, what? And that Saturday we signed a lease on an apartment.
Like we sound so crass.
So it's pretty insane. And so the same goes with marriage. I know that when it makes sense for a relationship and it's less stress for me, that will be the decision. And
so
it's
there's
natural, organic.
So there's no, I didn't think I detected it, but I wanted to check in anyway. Is there any level of, I just wish she would get on board with our marriage, or maybe we're not as tight as I think we are because she's not sure she wants to be married and I am more sure?
I think I'm so confident in our relationship that it's not like I'm dead set on being married. It's more of like I'm just dead set on, I have a higher goal in mind of just being very committed to our relationship and continuing to make sure that it's growing.
Yeah.
And that we're fully supporting each other. And so a marriage is just kind of like one of those events on that big journey.
Right.
And so I have a bigger focus, I think, about it.
Yeah.
It's like, that'll come.
And okay, good.
Yeah.
Now, what if you guys did get married, fast forward however many years that takes, you're married, and then fast forward probably 3 more, which seems to be about the average for real problems to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
And then those problems do pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're growing in different directions. You're married, but you're growing in different directions for whatever reason and whatever that actually means. And Jen, you're feeling disconnected, which from what you told me before, it sounds like it's the death knell for you. But you're married. What then?
I mean, at that point, I feel like it's you have to give it a chance, right? I mean, it's not going to be like the situation we were in before where we're not married, we're apart for 9 months because we're in different places in life. It's like you've made this commitment. So I feel I would owe it more to the relationship to be committed and work as best we can past those issues.
So you'd give it a chance?
No. I mean, yeah.
What is that?
It's interesting because I recognize what you're getting at.
Yeah.
And I am when I commit myself to something, I will do it until and Jen is nodding her head, I will make it happen.
No matter how painful it is.
No matter what,
Yeah.
how painful it
Yeah.
is.
She
I
will.
will like go at it until I can't even walk, you know?
Yeah.
And that level of commitment that's definitely a huge fear that the person that I choose to spend my life with and commit to for the long haul does not have that same just grit and tenacity.
Well, they won't. No human could possibly have your exact level in that spectrum, and it
true.
sounds like you're
Right.
pretty high.
It's pretty
Very
high.
high.
So,
Yeah.
so
But-
perfect. You're in this
Yeah. But the interesting thing there is, even if that happens, I know that I can, because of that gift that she gave me when we were apart, I know I'll be fine.
You'll be good.
We'll be good. And we will still support and love each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love this question. To me, it gets at the root of why marriage and what is marriage. Because I don't think that marriage has to be one thing for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that when couples get into it, they should know what it is for them. And there's so much fluff you can say about marriage that actually doesn't have any teeth.
That's so true.
And you two have both fluff and teeth. You know? And so I really want to get to the what would it actually be for the two of you. For Harmony, it's clear, like, I will get bloody feet running up this hill if I have to. I will do whatever it takes.
Even if that means, giving each other space or whatever that means,
Yeah.
It'll be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if there's kids involved.
Knowing my personality, because I work very different than Harmony. You can even see it in the way that we would do school or the way that we do work now. We can come out with very similar outputs, but the way we go about it is very, very different. And Harmony's one who will start weeks ahead of something, and she'll just like work on it, put in hours every night after she gets home from work. She'll put in extra hours, all these things. And I'm more, I have these spurts of just extreme productivity where I can, it's the procrastination is really what some people would call it. Where I can really, really focus intensely for a week
Yeah.
and produce something pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Our senior thesis. It took me 2.5 months, every day, at least 3 hours, slaving away. Jen decides to go to the computer lab 2.5 weeks before it's due and just like camps out there, and we get practically the same grade.
That's perfect.
Seriously, it's
insane.
That was really, that was a tough one. But I don't know though what that looks like for me. I know what it looks like for her. It seems more obvious, right?
Yeah, but hers is the traditional. And I don't want to leave you out in the cold with this question, because it's not about that either. Again, looking back at the research of which kind of relationships succeed, there isn't the perfectly matched pair. There is no such thing. There's always these missed connections on certain values. And there's no, and on this specific one, when is a marriage over and how hard will I work to keep the marriage going? That specific question, nobody ever matches up ever. And yet marriages really work. And you get marriages where one person is a massively committed person and one person is not committed at all, on two opposite ends of the spectrum, and they do fine. And I suspect you two are going to do fine. But what I want to get at is what's the magic that Jen's approach to things brings. A lot of times the approach that you've got brings a commit, like an integrity, like a commitment to the growth that you've been talking about, or honesty in the relationship, because it sounds like that's what drove the breakup before, was you just had to be honest with yourself. Whereas the hard driver, I'm going to make this work no matter what, sometimes will not pay attention to the details in order to just get through to the goal.
Sounds very familiar.
Is that a dynamic that the two of you have? I was just grasping at straws, but
I think there's a lot to what you said, and I do think that when we talk about what do I bring to the relationship and why couldn't Harmony be with someone who has the same personality as her, it's because she runs very emotionally, and I run very logically. And I think part of what I can bring to, I guess, that perspective on marriage and commitment and everything is kind of more of a lightheartedness. Like, do we need to take this so seriously, or no matter what happens, we'll be okay? And somehow that's gotten us to the point where we are now, which is we're just having a great time, and we are totally committed to each other, but it's not something that we talk about intensely often.
Right.
Because it's far above that. You know?
Right.
Yeah, although we are, I would say, intensely committed to each other.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's it for part 1 of the Harmony and Jen episode, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to listen in on Thursday for part 2, in which we'll find out if Jen and Harmony are on the same page about marriage. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you'd like to support what we're doing, please check out our crowdfunding campaign for exclusive content. You can find that at www.patreon.com/together. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our social platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide, where we also have an online magazine. Our Facebook page is Facebook/Together Show. Twitter and Instagram are both at Together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and my one and only is Aubrey Pick. She's out playing with the sheep next door, and I'm about to go join her. Thanks once again to my guests, Harmony and Jen. Guys, all I have to say is #Lumbertastic. Be sure to tune in for Thursday's episode, in which you will hear...
One of the first things we said when we walked out of our interview was, oh my God, that felt like a therapy session. And then we just kind of kept the conversation rolling, because it was kind of a moment.
That's all for today, folks. See you next time.